So this is a very big possibility. Some of my fish would live till I'm an old man. Like my zebra plecos, for example, the smaller ones that I have now. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Malik's Water Garden. So in today's video, we're going to look at something that's really important for you guys, which is how to feed our Hypancistrus. I'm also going to include how to feed the Pekoltia species as well as Rineloricaria, because all these fish have similar dietary requirements. So stay tuned, subscribe if you haven't, hit that notification icon so you don't miss out videos like this. There's a lot of content coming your way. So let's get into this video and figure out how we can feed these animals so they can live a very long life in our care. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Malik's Water Garden. In today's video, we're going to look at how we can feed our Hypancistrus. Now, these are some of the fish that we all love to keep, and it's very commonly available in the hobby now. There's a lot of new species coming up, a lot of new L numbers, Hypancistrus, different variations, and a lot of people are getting them. And a lot of people have no idea how to feed them. So in this video, we're going to look at how to feed our Hypancistrus, Pekoltia, as well as Rineloricaria, which all have similar dietary requirements. Now, I'm going to call these fish opportunistic omnivores. What does that mean? Opportunistic omnivores are fish that will eat predominantly meaty foods with a requirement or desire to eat more meat, and if there is not a lot of meaty foods available, they will eat other stuff. That does not mean that they are going to live long term by eating green material and stuff like that. So you cannot feed these animals cucumbers or zucchinis or something like that and expect them to live. They will get digestive issues very fast and they will die. So you have to really pay attention what type of foods you feed your Hypancistrus, Pekoltia species, as well as Rineloricaria species. Now, these animals have a proclivity to carnivorous diet, so they will require more meaty food. Now, what does that mean? So you want to feed them 5 or 6 days out of the week something that has a higher protein content, and I do not mean bloodworms. Bloodworms are not nutritious. Frozen bloodworms have very little nutritional value. If you look at the back of the packaging, about 95% of the frozen bloodworms is actually water. It actually stays in the back of the package. So about 4% or 5% of that packaging is about nutrition. So for this animal to get a decent meal, it would need to swallow considerably large amount of frozen bloodworms, which would create digestive issues, rot its gut from the inside, and your fish will die. So you do not want to feed your fish frozen bloodworms. You also do not want to feed things like frozen mussels and stuff like that without at least blanching them. In my experience, I do not feed frozen shrimp or mussels, but they do eat shrimp. They definitely like eating shrimp. I mean, you don't have to boil the shrimp or anything. You can feed them raw, but just make sure you get them from a healthy, a clean source with no chemicals or anything like that. It's really hard to source really good quality shrimp, so I don't really feed any of this stuff because I can't really validate where it comes from or how it's grown or farmed. I don't eat shrimp myself. I don't feed it to my fish. Now, what do I feed? I feed predominantly prepared food. I like feeding a lot of prepared food. I like a variety of prepared food. The things these guys seem to enjoy across the board: Nutrifin Bug Bites color enhancing formula. It has about 45 to 50% protein. It's made out of bug larvae or soldier fly larvae, and it's really good. It smells really bad and they really love it. All my Hypancistrus across the board. All the Rineloricaria love that stuff, as well as all the Pekoltia I have love that stuff. So Northfin, really good food. There's two different kinds. You can get the Pleco formula, which has about 40% protein, which is something you have to feed them every so often just to give them some added green material into their digestive systems. So I would feed the Pleco formula maybe once a week, once every other week, and I will feed them the Nutrifin Bug Bites color enhancing couple of times a week. They also seem to like tetratropical color granules, color enhancing. I really like feeding that stuff because across the board, all my Plecos like it. But it is not a healthy food long term all the time. So it shouldn't be your staple food. If there's nothing else available, you can feed it for a few days, even a few weeks without an issue. But you definitely want to switch up this food with other higher value food. Discus food seems to be really highly accepted. I feed Sarah Discus granules, the regular kind, which is about 50% protein again, and they seem to really like that stuff. It's a higher value food, but it does have some beef part, so I don't recommend feeding that every single day either. So you want to rotate these foods. I also like to have higher end food that's specifically designed for your Hypancistrus, like Aquaristic. They have a variety of foods, a complete lineup of foods that you can buy that is designed for Hypancistrus, particularly from baby Hypancistrus to adults. So I like to feed them a variety of different types of EBO foods, as well as Dr. Basileus, which is another special type of food, which is about 50% plus protein. A lot of my fry tanks get Dr. Basileus and Aquaristic, and they seem to grow really fast and really well on these foods. Now, as a rule of thumb, you want to try to feed them something that has above 50% protein. And a prepared food seems to be better for the animal's well-being, because you want to get a lot of nutrition in that food. With live foods, the nutritional value might be a little less than prepared food, so you can feed live foods as a treat, like chopped up earthworms, chopped up shrimp. I would stay away from things like mussels. I just don't really trust those things too much. Also, I would stay completely away from bloodworms. You can feed other types of foods like tilapia, like bits of tilapia maybe. Just at your own discretion. I would not recommend feeding a lot of frozen food, just because it has very low nutritional value, and you can't really vouch for the sources for a lot of this stuff. And we shouldn't even be eating tilapia and stuff like that, because it's farmed very wrongfully. Like, it's not farmed ethically or with your health in mind. It's farmed with low grade food. It's farmed with a lot of hormones and stuff like that, antibiotics, and these animals are packed full of these stuff, and you don't want to be eating that, and you definitely don't want to be feeding that to your fish. So you definitely want to stay away from that type of stuff. Again, at your discretion. I feed predominantly prepared food pretty much 99% of the time. There is the odd time I do feed them some brine shrimp cubes or something, or tubifex cubes. They definitely enjoy tubifex cubes. I chopped it up a little bit. I squeeze it in my hands into the water column and just dump it in there in a ball, and they'll go gangbusters. I also recommend having secondary food sources available, like snails and shrimp and stuff like that. Malaysian trumpet snail seems to be accepted across the board. All my plecos seem to hunt them. I've actually caught my zebra plecos hunting them actively through the sandbed, so they'll stick their head in, not all the way in like a corridora would be, but they would stick their whiskers and a part of their mouth into the sandbed, and I pick up the smaller Malaysian trumpet snails, and they will chew them up, and I'm pretty sure they're eating them, but like I can't verify that bit because I don't know what's going on in their mouth. I haven't pulled out the fish to see, but they're definitely eating something out of the sand. They also seem to be picking up little bits all the time out of the sand, so detritus seems to be making up a decent portion of their diet. So you don't want to have too pristine of an environment where like there's not a lot of detritus or anything like that for the animal. I'm not saying to keep your tanks dirty. You want to keep your tanks clean and pristine, and you want to keep your water quality as clean as possible, but you definitely want to have some types of detritus, maybe a couple of decaying leaves for some of the species like these guys, the L333s, the Potodemus. I have definitely eat some of the algae off the glass. They also eat these plants here, the jungle bells. They definitely eat the tops off. I've noticed them eating them quite a bit. So they definitely enjoy that type of stuff. They leave the wood alone. All my Hypancistrus seem to leave wood alone, but that's probably because they're well fed. But if there's not enough food sources, having wood might help, because then they can actually get some detritus and stuff, bacteria and stuff that's growing on the wood into their stomachs. They definitely need sand in their digestive system, as far as I can tell. All my Hypancistrus seem to ingest sand because all their poop never floats. If their poop ever floats, I'm definitely concerned, because none of my Hypancistrus poop ever floats. They definitely have something heavy in their poop, compared to like you would say like your larger Plecostomus species, like your Hypostomus and stuff like that, where their poop would float on the top corners. These guys, my Hypancistrus, their poop never floats. They're always on the bottom, and I can always siphon it out with a gravel whack, because it's heavy. It's not as heavy as sand, but it's almost as heavy as sand, so it'll sit right on top of the sand. So that's something to also consider, having sand. I use play sand, but pool sand also seems to work. Having sand in your aquarium seems to definitely help with their digestion. Now, these things are things you can do to keep these animals alive long term. These animals will live for about 10 to 15 years. Some of these could live 20 to 25 years. These guys could live 25 years easily. I've seen my friend had one that lived 22 years. that he has gotten as a wild caught adult. So it lived 22 years since he's gotten it as a wild caught adult. So that fish could have been 5-6 years already by the time he got it, and then it lived another 22 years in his care. So this is a very big possibility. Some of my fish would live till I'm an old man. Like my zebra plecos, for example, the smaller ones that I have now would live till the time I'm at least 55 or past that. Some of them could live until I'm 60 almost. I'm almost 40 years. I'm going to be 40 years in a month. And they could live another 15 to 20 years in my care if I do everything right. Now this is why I'm making these videos, so I can help you guys keep these fish alive long term. Now if you find value in this type of content, subscribe down below, hit the notification icon because it really helps me out and the channel out as well. And share this with all your networks because it really helps other people out. People always ask these type of questions online and nobody seems to have the answers, and there's not a lot of information available on these type of topics. So that's why I make these videos. Now in closing arguments, I would like to say you want to feed these guys a diet that's high in protein. It doesn't have to be the types of food that I'm feeding. A lot of people feed iguapo, a lot of people feed ripashi, a lot of the meat pie and stuff like that seems to be very well accepted and a lot of good success. You definitely want to switch up the food periodically. I like to feed different foods every day so that the fish doesn't get used to one thing. I feed a new food every single day, so they would see the same food maybe once a week. So they might see tetratropical color granules once a week. They might see nutrifin bug bites once a week. So you want to really switch it up. I definitely give them 1 day off once a week. I don't feed a lot. I feed what the fish can eat within an hour or so. If they're actively eating, even less than that. If they're not actively eating, especially if they're hiding like my L340s, I would put some food that they can eat over a longer period of time. I also feed the fry, if the L340 tank has fry, so I feed them several times in smaller amounts so the fry get more food, and I feed them a lot more higher value food. Now, these are things to consider. If you have any questions, please comment below and let me know what your questions are, and I'll try to answer them either in the comment section or as with the new video if it requires some further clarification. There's a lot of questions that's going to come into your minds, and even I think of a lot of things after I'm editing the videos. I think of more things, so there's definitely going to be more parts to this video, so subscribe and stay tuned for those things to come up. As always, thank you so much for your support. I love you all. I'll see you on the next video. Hope you have a wonderful day. God bless.